2 years ago, Barcelona were at their deepest point in history. They were 7th in La Liga, they were on the verge of dropping out of the Champions League group stage, and they lost any big games they had without even seeming to be able to do something about it. It's no surprise that Barcelona's coach, Ronald Koeman, got fired, and in his place came another Barcelona legend, Xavi. In 2 years, he has managed to completely transform Barcelona again, and people tend to forget sometimes to what extent he changed his team again into a team that is worthy of the name FC Barcelona. So make sure to stay tuned as we take a look into the journey of Xavi at Barcelona so far, and how he managed to make Barcelona great again. In November 2021, Xavi took over the mantle of Ronald Koeman for Barcelona's coaching position, and he definitely had quite a task to fulfill. Barcelona had been atrocious in La Liga, dropping points against the small teams and not being a rival anymore whatsoever for Real and Atletico Madrid. That's why they were only in 7th place. Xavi needed to make sure Barcelona wouldn't miss out on Champions League football for the coming season. It wasn't even about winning La Liga anymore. Also in the Champions League, Xavi had to win the games against Benfica at home and preferably also away against Bayern Munich to even still advance to the knockout stages. Now, Barcelona's squad at this point was far from what it is now. In their general lineup, their defense consisted of Jordi Alba, Gerard Piqué, Ronald Araujo and Serginho Dest, the midfield of Busquets, De Jong and Gavi. Pedri was out injured when Xavi arrived, and the attack of Dembélé, Memphis and Ansu Fati, if they were all fit. Otherwise, players like Ferran Jutgla and Luc de Jong had to come in and save the day for Barca. Long story short, Xavi didn't really have the best squad to work with, and it's therefore no surprise that they missed out on those Champions League knockout stages. You just couldn't expect a coach in his very first months with a squad like this to do miracles. Even in La Liga, things didn't really improve. At the end of 2021, Barcelona were still only in 5th place, and they still had dropped points against small teams under Xavi as well. His first months might have not been the best, but there had been a change in the general mood at the club. People understood that this was going to be a long-term project, and that with a squad like the one Xavi had, it was just difficult to immediately get results. That's why in January, Barcelona injected some quality into their squad. Ferran Torres, Adama Traoré, Dani Alves and Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. They had to help Xavi get Barcelona back on track that season. In January, Barcelona had already done better again in La Liga, and in the Spanish Supercopa they lost 2-3 to Real Madrid, but in that game, for the first time since a long while, they actually competed and played well. That was when people started believing in Xavi and the future of this club again. Under him, this team actually started to have some kind of structure. There was a plan. Barcelona started playing the Barcelona way again. In February and March, with all of the reinforcements, Barcelona finally became Barcelona again for the first time under Xavi. In big games against Atletico Madrid, Napoli and Real Madrid, they demolished their opponents with fluid attacking football, and they were just a joy to watch. Defensively, they still weren't that solid, but at least fans felt like they were supporting the Barcelona they all loved again. Now, in the Europa League, Barcelona ended up getting eliminated by Frankfurt, a team that played high-intensity attacking football, and that exposed Barcelona's weak points in defense and Barcelona's lack of structure defensively. Honestly, Barcelona were never really motivated to go and win the Europa League, as the same process would go on to repeat itself 1 year later against Man United. In La Liga though, Barcelona reached the 2nd place and assured themselves of Champions League football next season. So in his first season, Xavi had brought Barcelona all the way back from the 7th to the 2nd place in La Liga. But he had also just changed the atmosphere around the club again. Barcelona were a nice team to watch, they were just Barcelona again. In the summer of 2022, Xavi would finally get a proper squad in his hands, with the signings of Jules Koundé, Andreas Christensen, Rafinha, Robert Lewandowski and Franck Kessie. The main objectives for that season were to win La Liga, get as far as possible in the Champions League and to play good football. A couple of months into that season, Barcelona were first in La Liga after having comfortably won most games and finally having a defense that didn't concede goals. The feeling was great around the club. But there was a problem too. Barcelona had a problem in the big games. Against Bayern Munich and Inter in the Champions League, they had played good football, but there was no end product to their game. And defensively, against the very best, they proved not to be impeccable yet. In El Clasico in La Liga, they stood no chance against Real Madrid and lost 3-1, and lost their first place in La Liga. For the first time, people started questioning whether Xavi was really the right man for this job. The team's mentality and structure were questionable at moments, and when it came to pure quality, Barcelona should have been able to compete at the highest level. But taking injuries and Barcelona's lack of experience into account, it's completely understandable that they had a hard time in the very biggest of games. Before the World Cup in Qatar though, they did manage to regain their first place in La Liga, but in the Champions League they weren't able to turn the tide anymore and got sent to the Europa League again. To be honest, against Bayern Munich and the eventual finalists that gave Man City a hard time, it wasn't a disgrace to be eliminated. And with Barcelona's situation in La Liga, most fans still trusted Xavi as the right man for the process and saw that Barcelona were making great progress as a team. After the World Cup in Qatar, Barcelona would go on to play in the Spanish Supercopa in January. There they defeated Real Betis on penalties before playing the final against Real Madrid. In that final they won 3-1, but it wasn't about that result honestly. Barcelona had dominated the whole game, Real Madrid had been chasing shadows all game long, Pedri and Xavi were ruling the midfield against Real Madrid legends like Kroos and Modric. This was a game that showed that Barcelona are finally, more or less, back where they belong. And it was Xavi's first trophy as a Barcelona coach. In the remainder of that season, Barcelona kept on being consistent in La Liga. They defeated Real Madrid another couple of times, before being eliminated by them in a painful 4-0 defeat at the Camp Nou, a game that exposed the weaknesses of this Barcelona team. Just like 1 year ago against Frankfurt, Barca showed to be prone to quick and intensive counterattacks, and they didn't have an answer for it that day. In the Europa League, they got eliminated by Man United in 2 closely contested games. This, again, showed that even though Barcelona were honestly already world class again quality-wise, they still lacked the mentality and experience to go and win the very hardest of games against the top teams. Sometimes. Eventually, they didn't let La Liga slip out of their hands anymore, which meant that for the first time since 2019, they had finally won it again. And looking back at that season, it's fair to say that Xavi has accomplished his job. Barca won La Liga, and they might have indeed played quite boring football in some games according to some people, but considering some games like the one against Real Madrid in the Supercopa, Barcelona were also back again when it came to playing the Barcelona way. For this season, the goals for Xavi were to win La Liga again, to get far into the Champions League, and to also win that Copa del Rey trophy again that is supposed to be Barcelona's. Up till now, he definitely hasn't been doing bad, and with signings like Joao Cancelo and Joao Felix, Barcelona are now finally really playing beautiful football again. And if you now realize where Barcelona were at only 2 years ago, it's crazy to think that in such a short amount of time, this squad has become world class again. I mean, 2 years ago, Barcelona lost 3-0 away to Benfica. Now, away against Porto, they won 1-0 and were mature enough to defend their lead up there in the hardest of circumstances. That's the perfect way to showcase the progress this Barcelona team has made. And at the core of it has been none other than Xavi himself. That was it for today's video. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed it, and feel free to share your own opinion in the comments down below. Força Barça, Força Xavi, and have a good day.